It's the end of a long day and you're really craving baked apples. Now you could go with an apple pie, but unless you've mastered the art of perfectly pliable pie dough, you're more likely to end up with a brick than a dessert. Instead, we'll opt for the apple crumble. So, with only a few ingredients and a couple of algorithms, you'll not only appease your absent apple affliction, but you'll also learn to cook like a dad.
First step, let's preheat our oven to 350 degrees. There's no point in trying to bake a crumble if our oven is stone cold. Next, we're going to peel, slice, and cube 2 pounds of Granny Smith apples. Why Granny Smith? Well, not only are they good baking apples, but the extra tartness provided is going to contrast really well with the sweet topping that we're going to get to in a bit. So, this is our first programming lesson, loops. In programming, a loop is an action that happens over and over until a condition is no longer met. What does this mean in the kitchen? Well, it means do something until you're done with it. Don't go from peeling to slicing to cubing all in one step. Instead, peel all of your apples, then slice all of them, then cube them. Speaking of slicing, that's our next loop. So, first off, find the cheek, which is the largest part of the apple that you can cut without cutting close to the core. Then, rotate 180 degrees, cut the next cheek, rotate 90, cut the wedge, and another 180 to cut the last wedge. You should end up with 5 pieces, 2 cheeks, 2 wedges, and the core. Continue with all of your apples and then discard all your cores. Time for our last loop, cubing. Grab a wedge and cut it lengthwise. Then, keeping the pieces together, rotate it on its side and cut lengthwise again. You should end up with 4 rectangular-ish shapes. Keep them stacked and cut across to get cubes. To cube the cheeks, it's pretty much the same thing. First, cut them in half, and that basically gives you wedges. Then just repeat the same process by cutting lengthwise, rotating, cutting lengthwise, and then cutting again. If you end up with a cheek that's a little bit thicker, go ahead and cut it 3 times rather than in half, and then cut across. That'll give you roughly the same size for your cubes. Continue with all of your wedges and your cheeks, and we should end up with 2 pounds of nicely cubed apples. Next, grab a large bowl and make sure to put all your apples in there. Of course, you can give some to your pups if they're standing off camera and crying, like mine. Into that same bowl, we're going to add 100 grams, or 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 10 grams of flour, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of kosher salt. Then we're going to grab a spoon or a spatula and give it a good mix. The sugar is going to help pull moisture from these apples, which is then going to mix with the flour and give us a nice syrupy consistency. Trust me, you're going to want that. So keep mixing until everything is nice and incorporated, and then set it aside. All right, we're going to move on to our topping next. So 125 grams or 1 1/4 stick of unsalted butter, go into a saucepan or a microwave if you want to do it that way, and get nice and melty. While that's going, we're going to grab our bowl, and into it goes 100 grams or 1 cup of rolled oats, 200 grams or 1 cup of granulated sugar, brown sugar, or both, 150 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 pinch of kosher salt, half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're going to give it a nice whisk. There we go, you want it all nice and homogeneous. By this time your butter should be ready to go. Go ahead and kill the heat, let it cool just a bit, and then we're going to go and add it into the rest of our topping ingredients. Make sure to mix that all in with your spoon or your spatula, and once it's not too hot to touch, go ahead and get in there with your fingers. You want to make sure that there's no dry spots, and at the end it should look like wet sand. But when you push it together, it should clump up but easily crumble apart. That's exactly what we want. So let's set that aside and grab our baking dish. So you want to make sure you use at least a 9x9 baking dish, but depending on your dish, it could be smaller or larger. You want to go ahead and put all of your apples in there, making sure to get that delicious juice that's been extracted and mixed with the flour, which is going to make a nice syrup. Once all your apples are in there, you're going to want to pat them down until they're a nice flat layer, and then we're going to add our topping on top. So this is the fun part. Using your hands, go ahead and start to add the topping a fistful at a time. Make sure to squeeze and crumble with your fingers so you end up with a variety of different sizes. It's called an apple crumble after all, not a sheet, so it should look hilly and uneven. The only thing that matters is making sure that the topping fully covers the apples. That's pretty important. But aside from that, it's your own. Don't worry if there are hills and valleys, that's kind of the point. Make sure to pick up any of the pieces that you might have dropped on your cutting board because you made a mess. And then once that's ready, we're going to pop it into our preheated oven. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, so into the 350 degree oven for 45 minutes. More or less, depending on your oven. What we're looking for is golden brown and delicious. After about 45 minutes, you should see bubbling and the top should be nice and golden brown. But don't bite into it yet. It needs at least 10 minutes to cool. Trust me, your patience will be rewarded.
So there you have it, the simple and delicious apple crumble. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, follow on socials, do all that stuff. Stick around for more recipes, and remember to cook like a death. See you next time.